Ah, here we go, folks. The rhetoric's getting ramped up by this Christina Freeland. Oh, like, that's the hilarious part. They got to rely on, well, not just the CBC, but the federal liberals. They have to rely on the dumbed down masses that represents the Canadian population who don't pay attention because, like I say, they constantly put the anti-Trump rhetoric out there and propagate that message, right? That they're constantly hammering and hounding on the fact, well, you don't want to listen to anything what Trump says. And you must always know that, ooh, Trump let the Russians collude and interfere and affect the election outcome in the U.S., which, like I say, the Mueller report has proven that. Well, the American people, they understand this, but because the Canadian people, like, they follow CBC so much, they still believe a large portion or percentage of the Canadian population seemingly are willing to fall in line and go along with the kind of bullshit rhetoric that is now being presented as if, ooh, the Russians are coming, ooh, the Canadian elections, ooh, watch out for the scary big bad Russians. What are they going to do? You'll put out a fucking post on there that's against the liberals or the conservatives. What? They're going to propagandize people? You mean you have some competition you got to work against there? Liberals or cons or end dippers? Really, at the end of the day, that's what this truly represents, is the ones that want to be your thought leaders, your opinion makers, or your rulers. They don't like to have to compete with other people that might give you different information. I mean, if they treat you like an adult, they'd say, okay, well, let these fake news or these propagandists, these Russian bots or Russian, let them say what they got to say. As long as I have the right idea, well, other people should be able to say what they got to say, but they're so scared that you might hear someone else's rhetoric and think about how fearful or uncomfortable they are with their own rhetoric that they're scared you might hear something else. I mean, if they had the right, like I know myself, if you have the right ideas, if you're being honest, if you're being forthright, if you're being truthful, I don't really give a shit if there's lots of propagandists out there, and I wouldn't try to silence or suppress them anyway, because I realize that most people will still gravitate to want to listen to me because I'm giving them honesty, and I think most people are wise enough, if they're adults, to recognize that. The liberals, Christina Freeland, they want to treat the Canadian population, the Canadian people, as if you're just a bunch of dumbasses. And you need to have your thought leaders and your opinion makers telling you what to do, how to think, and how to perceive any potential outside actors that might give you some difference of opinions or information in regards to politics, economics, or what it is even me to be a free human being. They're scared to death that you might hear some varying opinions or alternative sources of information that they're willing to do stuff like this. Headline out of CBC News: Politics, Canada expects foreign meddling in October election, Christina Freeland says. Our judgment is that interference is very likely, Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister says. It's being reported by Thomson Reuters, April 5th, 2019. Canadian Global Affairs Minister Christina Freeland said on Friday it was likely that foreign actors would meddle in the country's October elections, and her British counterpart said a deterrent to stop countries like Russia from interfering was critical. Yeah, just like over Britain. Exactly. The Britain counterpart. It's been almost 3 years since the people of Britain decided that they wanted to leave the EU. And they're still, their political masters over in Great Britain have still denied the people their democratic right, their democratic vote, right? Even after all this time, and they're basically threatening them, hey, you better do what we say and go along with the deal that we really want and forgo what you expected from the referendum. I mean, think about how that's playing out. Like I say, at the very least, the one thing I will take away from this that's positive is at least shows that the people that rule over you, they don't give a shit about democracy, majority rule or any of that. And in a way, I don't either, but at least I'm honest about it. But these people pump up and promote as if they adhere to and respect democracy. Of course, the minute democracy, the majority or the mob turns against the ruling class, they're like, oh, we don't like democracy anymore. Right? Now the people that go against our particular choices or our opinions or our ideology, yeah, we don't respect them. They're deplorables. They're a bunch of whiners, complainers, dumbed down, bunch of idiots. I mean, you know what they try to say and suggest towards people that chose to leave the European Union, which, like I say, it represented a majority of the UK people. So can you at least respect their wishes? No, of course they won't. And neither will the federal liberals, although they will offer you some political propaganda or some kind of political cover to give them some pretense of reason of why they'll deny you your democratic rights or prevent you from having your voice heard. U.S. intelligence officials and the government of some European Union countries have accused Russia of interfering in elections in recent years, allegations strongly denied by Moscow. But once again, like I say, the Mueller report is out, and it's been proven already, because if they had the smoking gun, you would have heard about it already. So basically, the proof is already there that there was no collusion. So it was all a false spectacle. It was all fake news built up on this false pretense of Russian interference or Russian meddling in the election of the United States. No, Trump won that election because the American people were sick and tired of top-down authoritarianism, collectivism, and full-on central planning that goes against their own best interests. That's the truth of the matter, folks. Same with the people of the UK. They're fucking tired of a bunch of fucking bureaucratic elitists or central planning authoritarians dictate and controlling every area of their social or economic lives. That's the reality. That's the true divide. But like I say, when it comes to those in government, yeah, they don't like competition. And it's the same thing for those who want to be your thought leaders or opinion makers. They definitely don't like competition. When asked whether she was worried Russia would interfere in the election, Freeland said she was very concerned. Our judgment is that interference is very likely, and we think there have been probably already been efforts by malign foreign actors to disrupt our democracy, she said, speaking at a media freedom event on the sidelines of a G7 foreign ministers meeting in France. Freeland said such attempts were not aimed at securing a particular outcome in a national election, but to polarize Western societies. No. You're doing a very, very good job all on your own. You and you federal liberals, you're the one that's creating the divide. To pretend that some external actors are doing that and try to give yourself some means of escape or pretend that you're not contributing that in any way, a nice try. Her comments echoed those of her cabinet colleague, Democratic Institutions Minister Karina Gold, who earlier this year said it would be naive to assume Canada won't be targeted in the lead up to the election given its membership in the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, and participation in the Five Eyes Intelligence Alliance. Anyways, I'm not going to give this article any more attention that really needs to be. We're hearing the rhetoric. You already know the rhetoric. It's not like this is the first time you're hearing of this stuff, but they're definitely ramping up the rhetoric and suggesting that, hey, they should have some capacity, some ability to be able to dictate and control what you see and hear on the lead up to the federal elections. Be careful, be wise, Canada, and as much as they wish that they could silence and suppress all of our voices out there on the social media, if you take the personal responsibility on your own and take that time out of your life to make sure you're properly informed, you'll see that they have no capacity to silence or suppress us. Even if they try to shut down or silence their voice on a couple social media platforms, the internet is basically like a highway. You might be able to prevent us from getting off on a couple stops, but you're never going to prevent us from traveling down that highway. Or, well, the minute you shut down the highway, the only way you can do that is if you shut down the highway. And the minute you've shut down the highway, well, then nobody's getting anywhere, right? So they're not going to be able to prevent people like myself or anyone else from having some influence on politics, because really, that is literally what it is. That's what politics is. Everyone tries to influence each other. But what they're saying is they don't like competition. People who are scared of competition are people that have obviously very terrible ideas and are very much authoritarian in nature. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.